It is up, everyone. This is Captain Eon speaking. And for this share, I'd like to talk about something I gleaned from chapter 14, verse 12, which I've titled, "That's Between Us." And one of the side effects, if you will, of really spending time in God's Word every day that I have discovered for myself is this increased burden for and of righteousness. For a burden to want to have the righteousness of Christ in my life, as well as the burden for, I guess it's the same thing, the righteousness of Christ to be seen and evident in my life. But the question I pose is why? Why exactly? First of all, it is a joy. This quote-unquote burden is such an honor to be able to hear from God every day and to hear His word, which convicts my heart and empowers my mind and strengthens my faith, leaving me expectant. All of these things, sometimes all at the same time. This is a privilege. And so, if the, again, quote-unquote side effect for having this privilege is a burdensome life. And again, I use these words loosely to try to stick with my theme and emphasize the point. But this burdensome life, if this is the side effect, then I think it's all worth it. For one, he says that means that I am a servant in His courts. And unlike any other servant who stands and falls by their master or before their master, the great King of Kings, the Lord of glory, none of His servants ever fall, because He upholds them. And that, for one, is between us, He and I. Another thing that has come with this burden has really been the burden for others, as God has really impressed upon me this burden for righteousness for myself. Likewise, in love, I want that for others. But what he tells me today, and this is where this main idea comes into play, in the aforementioned chapter, he says, it reminds me of Philippians 2:12. I believe that's where it was, but yes, that we will study to show, that we must account for ourselves. That's why it's between us, God and I, and my belief, each individual for themselves. And so ultimately, I'm realizing that this burden isn't really what I perceived it to be in the beginning, because it's actually the weight, W-A-I-T, play on words, of the cross of Christ on my life. I can only imagine the heaviness that he carried, the weight of the world on his shoulders, the weight of all the sin of humanity was burdensome, this daily cross. So I believe that's why I feel this burden. That's the quote unquote side effect. I'm sorry to bring the term I used before, the side effect for spending time daily with the Lord through his word and applying it, or in my case, praying to the Lord and believing that he's allowing me to apply it to my life. But it is these moments and these things that ultimately allow me to be burdened with the weight again of being covered under his glory. That's the longing for righteousness, I believe, why it is. It is the longing. It is the closeness of his glory brings in this longing for righteousness, I think, is the simplest way to put it. And how that goes between the Lord and I, well, that's between us. Caption this. Whoever thus serves Christ is acceptable to God and approved by men. So then let us pursue what makes for peace and for mutual upbuilding. Sir.